Black widower takes in hungry triplets and their mother, unaware that she will change his life. Marcus Evans' fists pounded against the door of his own home as two burly security guards held his arms. On the sidewalk, three small children clung desperately to their mother, a white woman with brown hair who begged for mercy. "Please, my children can't stay out in the cold," Sarah cried, hugging the 4-year-old triplets to her chest. The November rain fell mercilessly, and the little ones shivered under a soaked blanket. "Hey, that's my house," protested Marcus, a 45-year-old black man whose eyes bore the recent pain of losing his wife Elena just 3 months earlier. "Who the hell do you think you are?" The bailiff, a short man with a thin mustache, approached them, brandishing a document. "The bank has foreclosed on the mortgage, Mr. Evans. This property now belongs to the Richmond Financial Group." Marcus felt the world collapse around him for the second time in a few months. First, Elena, victim of a devastating cancer, now his home, the last refuge where her memories still lived. But something in the scene before him awakened a long-dormant protective instinct. Those children, wet and frightened, seemed even more helpless than he was. "Are you evicting her, too?" Marcus asked, pointing to Sarah. "Mrs. Williams lived in the back apartment," the officer explained with bureaucratic indifference. "The entire property has been foreclosed." At that moment, Marcus' eyes met Sarah's. Two strangers united by the same cruel fate, by the same ruthless institution. The triplets, Lily, Noah, and Emma, huddled against their mother, their faces pale with cold and fear. "How much time do we have?" Marcus asked, his voice controlled despite the anger boiling inside him. "You have 1 hour to collect your personal belongings. After that, the property will be sealed." That was when Marcus Evans, a retired accountant and recent widower, made the most impulsive decision of his methodical life. "Come with me, all of you." Sarah hesitated, confused. "Where?" "My brother-in-law has a cabin on the lake. It's small, but it has a fireplace. Better than staying out in the rain with the children." What no one at that moment could have imagined, not the truculent security guards, not the bailiff, and certainly not the all-powerful Richmond Financial Group, was that they had just brought together two people whose intertwined histories would reveal secrets capable of bringing down a corrupt banking empire, secrets that Elena Evans had discovered weeks before she died and that Sarah Williams carried unknowingly in a folder of seemingly insignificant documents. Will this chance encounter spark a revolution against a corrupt empire? Stay tuned to Black Voices to find out. As they hurriedly gathered clothes and supplies, Marcus couldn't help but notice how Sarah moved around the house with a disconcerting familiarity, as if she knew every corner, every drawer, and there was something about the way she looked at Elena's photo on the shelf. It wasn't the look of a stranger, but of someone who held memories. If you think this is just another story about cruel evictions and helpless families, get ready. What's coming will make you question everything you think you know about coincidences, justice, and how sometimes fate uses devious paths to bring the right pieces together on the board of revenge. If this beginning has already moved you, don't forget to subscribe to Black Voices, because what comes next will leave you speechless. The security guards watched impatiently as two shattered lives tried to fit into hastily packed suitcases, unaware that there, in that November rain, an alliance was being forged that in a few months would shake the rotten foundations of the financial system that was now expelling them. How will this unlikely duo uncover a web of corruption? Keep watching on Black Voices to discover the truth. The rain drummed on the roof of the Ford as Marcus navigated the winding road. The triplets slept in the back seat under soggy blankets while Sarah hugged the briefcase to her chest. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "We barely know each other and we're already running away together. The real criminals are drinking whiskey in their offices," Marcus replied bitterly. "How long have you lived in the back apartment?" 3 years since since I was left alone with the triplets." Lightning flashed across the sky, the folder slipped, scattering papers. Marcus slowed down, his eyes catching something, the Richmond Financial logo on a memo marked "Confidential Operation Clean Sweep." "Where did you get this?" Her voice trembled. Sarah blushed. I clean their offices, I keep papers with one side blank for the kids to draw on. And Marcus grabbed the document, devouring every line. It was a plan for the systematic foreclosure of mortgages in neighborhoods with minorities and single-parent families. Date, 8 months ago, before Elena got sick. Do you have more documents like this? A whole folder. Why? The phone vibrated. Jack, his brother-in-law. You're on the news. The CEO of Richmond is bragging about cleaning up undesirable elements from the neighborhood. Jack, called David Reeves, the lawyer who defended Elena against the hospital, the one who sues corporations. Exactly, we have the nuclear bomb he's always been looking for. 2 days later, in the modest cabin, documents were scattered across the table. David Reeves, a lawyer famous for taking down corporate giants, examined each piece of paper. This is financial genocide, he muttered, adjusting his glasses, deliberately targeting blacks, Latinos, and single mothers. Sarah nearly spilled her coffee. It wasn't a coincidence. Look at the dates, Marcus pointed out. Elena was investigating this. She was a financial analyst before she got sick. David looked up, and her treatment was denied 3 times by her health insurance. Who runs that insurance company? Richmond Financial Group, Marcus replied, his voice cold. That night, Sarah found Marcus on the porch looking out at the frozen lake. Do you think Elena's death wasn't just cancer? I don't know, but she was gathering evidence, and you showed up with the missing pieces. What do we do now? Marcus turned, his eyes shining with determination. We destroy them, all of them. The next day, Richmond Financial held a press conference. Richard Sterling III, CEO in his Italian suit, smiled for the cameras. We celebrate the success of Operation Clean Sweep. We have revitalized neighborhoods, creating opportunities for serious investors, and removing elements that impeded progress. A reporter asked about discrimination. Sterling laughed. Nonsense, we follow financial criteria. If certain demographics are affected, maybe they should make better choices. Marcus turned off the TV with a bang. Better choices. Elena works 60 hours a week. David smiled predatorily. You know what's better than suing a corporation? Destroying it with its own weapons. Sarah then made a crucial discovery. At the bottom of the folder, a black flash drive. E-Secure. Elena Evans. Marcus choked. The flash drive revealed everything: spreadsheets, emails, recordings. Elena had documented meetings where executives laughed about cleaning up the human trash, offshore transfers, money laundering. One recording was particularly disturbing. Sterling saying that Mexican analyst is digging too deep. If she keeps digging, she'll find the bones we buried. Maybe it's time to show her what happens to people who don't know their place. Sarah cried. They killed his wife. Marcus stared at a photo of Elena on the screen. The file was called Operation Justice: How to Bring Down an Empire. Outside, the snow was beginning to melt. Sterling and his cronies were toasting in their skyscraper, unaware that in a humble cabin, 3 ordinary people were about to carry out the plan Elena had died trying to complete. The most ironic part, the documents that would destroy them had been saved from the trash by a single mother they considered undesirable, exactly the kind of person they had sworn to eliminate. Karma, it seems, chooses the most unlikely messengers to deliver its justice. But if you think gathering evidence would be enough to bring down a billion-dollar empire, get ready. What would happen in the coming weeks would prove that sometimes justice needs more than documents. She needs a trap so perfect that even the victims would applaud its execution. The Richmond Financial Group press conference was packed. Richard Sterling III took the podium with his usual arrogant smile, unaware that in the last 48 hours, a devastating virus had infiltrated every system in the company, a virus called truth. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here to celebrate the conclusion of Operation Clean Sweep and announce our expansion into 5 more cities. Sterling began, adjusting his Italian tie. At exactly 10:03, as planned, the screens behind him flickered. Instead of the corporate logo, Elena Evans' face appeared, followed by her words, "If you're watching this, it's because I didn't survive to tell the story." But the truth always finds a way. Sterling turned pale. Technical problems, turn it off. But the technicians, secretly instructed by David Reeves, kept everything running on the screens. Documents began to appear, internal memos, detailed spreadsheets, demographic maps marked in red. Elena's recorded voice narrated each piece of evidence. The Richmond Financial Group developed an algorithm to identify neighborhoods with high concentrations of minorities and single mothers. They called it responsible urban cleansing. The journalists became agitated, cameras flashed. Sterling tried to leave the stage but found the doors discreetly locked. The presentation continued, revealing emails where executives discussed how to eliminate undesirable elements and maximize returns through forced gentrification. Then came the final blow: audio recordings of the secret meetings. Sterling's voice echoed through the hall. "We need to get rid of that Mexican analyst. She's digging too deep. If she finds out about the offshore accounts," another executive replied, "how about an accident? Something discreet." Sterling: "No, let's go the medical route. We have contacts at the hospital. We deny experimental treatment a few times. Nature does the rest." A collective gasp rippled through the room. Sterling, completely pale, grabbed the microphone. This is fabricated, deep fake. I never." But the next recording silenced him. It was a phone conversation between him and the hospital director, discussing the Elena Evans problem and how to delay medical approvals indefinitely. At 10:15, FBI agents entered the hall. Sarah Williams was with them, dressed professionally, no longer the cleaning lady who saved papers from the trash, but the key witness who had preserved crucial evidence. "Richard Sterling III," announced the lead agent, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit fraud, systematic discrimination, money laundering, and conspiracy to commit murder." As they handcuffed Sterling, he shouted, "You don't understand, it was just business, just maximizing profits." From the back of the room, Marcus Evans emerged from the shadows. He walked calmly toward Sterling, his eyes meeting those of the man who had orchestrated his wife's death. "Business," Marcus repeated, his voice calm, but charged with emotion. Elena was 42 years old. She loved gardening and classical music. She spent her Sundays teaching math to underprivileged children. "She was my life." Sterling lowered his head, finally understanding the magnitude of what he had done. "You know what the irony is?" Marcus continued, "You called us undesirable elements, but it was people like us, a cleaning lady saving paper for her children to draw on, who brought your empire down." Camera flashes lit up the scene as Sterling was escorted out. On the screens, the video continued, now showing the faces of all the families affected by Operation Clean Sweep, hundreds of people who had lost their homes. David Reeves approached the microphone. "What you witnessed today is only the beginning. We have evidence linking the Richmond Financial Group to a network of corruption involving politicians, judges, and executives from other corporations." Sarah, holding Marcus' hand for moral support, added, "This is not just our victory, it is the victory of every community that has been silenced, marginalized, and considered disposable." That afternoon, Richmond Financial stock plummeted 87% within 24 hours. All of the company's assets were frozen. The corporate headquarters, ironically, would be turned into a community center for evicted families. Sarah's triplets, Lily, Noah, and Emma, watched everything on TV in the cabin, not fully understanding, but sensing that something very important had happened, something that would change not only their lives, but the fate of thousands of families. At 6 p.m., a spontaneous vigil formed in front of the former Richmond Financial office. Hundreds of people held candles, many of them victims of Operation Clean Sweep. In the center of the crowd was a photo of Elena Evans, surrounded by flowers. What no one in that crowd could have imagined was that this moment of justice revealed was not the end, but the beginning of something much bigger. In the files seized by the FBI, there were connections to other corporations, other schemes, other victims waiting for justice. And Marcus Evans, the retired accountant who once mourned her loss, now found himself at the forefront of a movement that surpassed anything he could have imagined. Justice, it seems, is like water. It always finds a way, and sometimes it uses the most unlikely messengers to reveal truths that the powerful would rather keep buried forever. 6 months later, the former Richmond Financial Group office had been transformed into exactly what Richard Sterling III feared most, a vibrant community center where executives once discussed how to clean up undesirable elements. Families now participated in financial literacy programs, legal aid, and art classes for children. Marcus Evans, appointed director of the center, watched from the window of what had been Sterling's office. Sarah Williams, now social programs coordinator, organized the opening of the new children's wing, named the Elena Evans Space in honor of the woman whose posthumous courage had started it all. Ironic, isn't it? Sarah approached, carrying a stack of registration forms. A year ago, I was cleaning these floors at midnight. Now I'm helping to transform lives here. The triplets ran down the hallway laughing as they played with other children, all beneficiaries of the reparations fund created with the assets seized from Richmond Financial. The court had ruled that every family affected by Operation Clean Sweep would receive not only their homes back, but compensation for moral and material damages. That afternoon, a federal prison van pulled up in front of the building. Richard Sterling III, now wearing an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs, was being brought in to perform community service, part of his 25-year sentence. The judge had ordered him to spend 2 afternoons a week serving meals to the very people he once called human trash. Sterling hesitated at the entrance, his face marked by months of public humiliation and isolation. His former elite friends had disappeared, his assets confiscated, his family shamed. Even his wife had filed for divorce, taking their children to Europe. Marcus came down to greet him. Welcome to the Elena Evans Community Center, he said calmly. You'll be working in the kitchen today. Donna Maria, who was evicted 2 years ago, will teach you how to serve. Sterling hung his head, unable to meet Marcus's gaze. As they walked down the hallway, they passed colorful murals painted by children, among them a portrait of Elena smiling, surrounded by butterflies. In the community kitchen, Donna Maria, a 68-year-old Latina woman, handed Sterling an apron. You serve with respect, she instructed. Look people in the eye, smile, ask if they want more. Over the next few hours, Sterling served meals to hundreds of people, many of whom recognized his face from the news. Some muttered, others just watched. An elderly black woman stopped in front of him, studying his face. You took my house, she said simply. My grandchildren had to sleep in shelters for 3 months. Sterling swallowed hard. I'm sorry. Feeling sorry doesn't change the past, she replied, but serving can change the future. Keep working. At 5 p.m., the center was bustling with activity. David Reeves was leading a workshop on consumer rights. In the children's library, Sarah read stories to a group of fascinated kids. In the auditorium, former Richmond Financial employees, now repentant and cooperating with the justice system, gave lectures on business ethics. Marcus found Sterling washing dishes in the kitchen, his previously manicured hands now red from the hot water. You know, Marcus said, Elena always believed that people can change, that true justice isn't just punishment, but transformation. Sterling paused, tears welling in his eyes. I destroyed so many lives. Yes, you did, but now you have a chance to help rebuild them. Use it well. That evening, after the center closed, Marcus and Sarah walked together to Elena's makeshift memorial in the garden. Fresh flowers were left there daily by people grateful for her posthumous courage. She saved us all, Sarah said softly, arranging a bouquet of daisies. Even after she was gone, and Marcus nodded, holding her hand. And she taught us that true revenge isn't destroying those who hurt us, but building something so beautiful that their evil becomes irrelevant. A year later, the Richmond case had become a national reference point for restorative justice. Documentaries were produced, laws were changed, and corporations across the country reviewed their foreclosure policies. Elena's flash drive had started a wave of change that swept through the predatory financial system. Sterling, after 2 years of community service, had visibly transformed. On his last day before returning to prison, he approached Marcus. I know I can never fully make up for the harm I've done, But I want you to know Elena was right about everything. That same day, Sarah received a letter from the federal government. The FBI had discovered through the Richmond files an even larger network of corruption. She and Marcus were invited to lead a national task force against systemic financial discrimination. From cleaning lady to federal task force leader, she laughed, showing Marcus the letter. Who would have thought? Elena would have, he replied, smiling for the first time since she had left. She always saw the extraordinary in ordinary people, and so what began as a personal tragedy and a systemic injustice turned into a movement for change. Marcus and Sarah didn't just survive the storm, they turned it into rain that fertilized a new beginning for thousands of people. The ultimate irony, Sterling's cleanup plan ended up cleaning up the corrupt system he represented. Sometimes justice has a peculiar sense of humor, and as Elena always said, the truth is like water, it always finds a way. If this story of courage, justice, and transformation touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to Black Voices, because sometimes the biggest changes start with ordinary people who refuse to accept the unacceptable, and who knows, the next Elena, the next Marcus, the next Sarah could be